grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
Welcome to Tales from the Field. My name is Bradley Ball, and we are back and better than ever. Last week, Daniel Taylor released managed backup compilations with long-term backups from Azure SQL Managed Instance. And then on Wednesday, I released Microsoft Fabric Time Travel and Data Warehouse for up to 30 days. Then this week, we posted Where in the World is Tales from the Field team. We've got a lot of places that we're going, from SQL Saturdays to Data Saturdays to Future Data Driven to over in Stockholm with Dan, all the way up to Live 360 in November. If you're wondering where you can find us, where you can interface with us, please make sure to check us out and follow us. And we'd love to see you. Dan's going to have laptop stickers. We'll have laptop stickers wherever we are live, and we can't wait to see you and be able to hang out with all of you. This is your first time finding your way over to the Tales from the Field, give us a like and give us a subscribe. We drop content on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. On Mondays and Wednesdays, we drop our MS Tech Bits. On Tuesdays, we drop our Azure Data Community Roundtable. And now the Mentally Stable-ish podcast. Our first episode is live. It is up on YouTube. It is on Spotify. It is on iTunes. It is on Real Player. It is on Amazon. Any place you get your podcast, you can find Mentally Stable-ish. We released our preview today. The preview is just going to be the first, I think it's about a minute.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of background noise. I think maybe, Josh, that's from you. It's our first 30 minutes, or sorry, not our first 30 minutes. Geez, the episode is less than 30 minutes. It is our first minute. It is the opening trailer, and we are going to be dropping content weekly until the end of the year. We can't wait to hear from you. It's me and Neeraj and Josh and me and Neeraj and Josh and Dan. Sorry, I could see all of us there. My mind was blanking. There we go. Brad's tongue needs a moment for his brain to catch up with it. Whatever the little scroll is, Josh, you know what that is. You're looking for it right now. Anyway, thank you for joining us. If you want to interact with the show, it is so easy to do so. Just make a comment on the screen, and one of my amazing co-hosts is going to add your comment to the screen, and you will be a part of the show. Speaking of those amazing co-hosts, I am joined by the man in the hat, Mr. Josh Luedeman, the best beard in the business, even when he's clean shaven, Mr. Andrés Padilla, the mountain man, Daniel Taylor, our good buddy Marco Aurelio Cardoso is running a little bit late, but we're hoping we're going to have him here by the end of the program. And then my captain, Neeraj Jhaveri, is out on vacation this week. Neeraj, it is a much-deserved vacation, and we hope you are out there enjoying yourself.
Watch out for the aliens.
Absolutely. I just realized there's a couple things that I need to open that I didn't open like I normally do. So I'm going to have all of you just talk for a moment.
So, Brad, I am, while you're open notes, I am super excited about Mentally Stable-ish and doing that, those podcasts with our friends. You're going to learn a lot about us, but as we're going through this journey, we're learning a lot about ourselves and our friendship, things we never even knew about each other. And we've known each other for almost close to 2 decades for some of us. So looking forward to sharing those thoughts with y'all.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And let me ask you, because Josh, we've known each other for forever. Dan, I've known you for well over a decade. And I felt like that there are things just within the first 4 episodes that we've recorded that I have learned. I love that sentiment that you said. It's things that I never knew about you. I never knew about either of you. There's things that we went through. I mean, one of the big things I found is I need to become a better listener. When we did our very first episode, there were items that Neeraj had kind of talked about that he went through, and it shocked me. And I went, wow, I didn't know that you were going through these things. And we've all been sitting here. We've been on the same team for a while. We've been doing Tales from the Field for almost 2 years now. And I couldn't help but think I was talking to him weekly, and I didn't realize some of the stuff that was going on in his life. And it's good. And it's important to be able to have those deeper conversations.
Absolutely.
Yep. Completely agree.
All right. Well, let me see if I've got everything prepared in the way that I need to now. So we are the Azure Data Community Roundtable, right? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that you get involved with the Azure Data community. So make sure and go over to the Azure Data community. Check this out. Find a local user group. The local user groups feed our community. It's an incredible place to go. It's going to help you. It's going to help your career. A lot of us started out with our local user groups, and it's a wonderful place to go. So make sure to head over to the Microsoft site for the Azure data community. Check that out. There's so many other wonderful listings as well that we have. After you do that, where do we want you to go? We want you to go to SQL Saturday. And if we look at this, there's a couple SQL Saturdays coming right up where we've got wonderful activity and we've got folks who are going to be there. Dan, you're going to be at SQL Saturday Boston, and you're also going to be at SQL Saturday Orlando with myself. Andreas, I believe you're going to be coming up and joining us for our first ever Tales from the Field Roundtable. Mr. Bradley Schacht's going to be there as well. Top training from folks at Microsoft, MVPs in the community. Check out the pre-cons that they have for these SQL Saturdays, because you could go to a conference and you could attend these pre-cons, but you're typically going to pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars more to be able to do that than you could by getting it in your own backyard. Next place we want you to go, well, we want you to head over to Data Saturday. And there are a lot of great Data Saturdays coming up, one of which is in Columbus, Ohio. And Mr. Daniel Tiller is going to be there with our good buddy, Matt Gordon. We covered that on Where in the World is the Tales from the Field team. You're going to want to go check that out. But there's a lot of different ones around the globe. There's a great one coming up in Dallas. Our good buddy, Bob Ward, is going to be there. And our friend of the program, James Phillips, is also going to be there. He's helping to put that on, and it is a wonderful, wonderful event. Well, if you're a fabricator like I am, there's big news, right? The Microsoft Fabric European Conference is coming up the 24th through the 27th of September. Dan Tiller is going to be there in the community zone representing the crew from Tales from the Field. He's going to have plenty of laptop stickers. Make sure and hit him up. If you feel comfortable, you can get a hug or a handshake, whatever it is. Make sure that you're happy with it. But Dan's a hugger, so he's okay if you want to give him a hug. And of course, if you're a fabricator, one other thing that we're going to ask for, we're going to ask you to head over to LinkedIn and go ahead and join our Fabric channel. We've got close to 4,000 people that are a member of this channel. Some of the links you're going to see came from this channel and from the folks that we know that post in this channel regularly. We're over there. The product group is over there. And it's a wonderful way to be able to get involved with the Microsoft Fabric community. That was a lot, Andreas. I got to tell you, I've been running around today, exercising a little bit more, but my first meeting was at 7:30 a.m. We had to move it back so I could get my run in, and then meeting after meeting running into this. It feels like, even though it's only been 2 weeks, feels like forever since we've done a Tales from the Field roundtable. I was a little unprepared this morning. Hoping you had a great weekend. How are you doing?
Good, buddy. I'm glad you asked. The only problem I have right now, because everything's good, is garbage. I have to change my garbage disposal out. That's the only thing that I got going. But besides that, everything's beautiful. It's great to be back here. Once I get that fixed, I think we're back in, the machine's running lean and mean.
So on that note, real quick, garbage disposal systems. Here's what I love. And I didn't know this until I became a homeowner, but there are some amazing garbage disposal systems out there. There are some that run silent, that can even chop up meat bones if you drop them down in there, which makes for a scary thing whenever you're watching the horror movie and somebody drops something down in the garbage disposal. But I couldn't help but get one of those really cool ones. Are you getting a pretty cool fancy one that you're going to be putting in?
Maybe, and not to be morbid here, but it reminds me a little bit of that scene from Fargo. So, yeah. Exactly.
No, my hands are cringing. I'm down here. I'm like, oh.
I think we should start giving an episode award to whoever does the best miming while people are telling a story. Because I think Dan just won that one hands down, like for the last year's worth of episodes. Like Dan just won.
Congratulations, Dan. You're the winner. Everybody give it up.
Well, we don't do the points anymore, so somehow we've got to add competition back in.
It's been a while since we did a point show. Maybe one day we just do a roundtable where it's us telling stories, having points, having fun. That might be a nice throwback to be able to do at some point in time, just to shake things up, so we can do that. And Marco, I'm so glad you were able to make it. We gave you your wonderful Robin Hood introduction, as usual.
Thank you so much. Aliens almost got me this time, but negotiations are tough, man.
I was going to say, Josh is not alone. You got to watch out. They're coming for you. All right. Speaking of why people are here, well, they're coming here for the Azure Data Community Roundtable. So first up, what we're going to do is I'm going to build a real-time order notification system with Event Stream's CDC, Change Data Capture connector. So what is this about? Well, Alex Lynn does a fantastic job walking us through showing how we have connectors for Azure Cosmos database, Azure database for Postgres, Azure SQL database, and also MySQL database. He's going to show you how we build this. He's going to show you how to be able to enable this. And of course, he does it in one of my favorite places, Azure SQL database. He walks through how to be able to enable this, how to be able to set up the event stream, how to be able to consume the data, and then real time pull that data in. I love this. I love the different capabilities that we're starting to get and the flexibility and the patterns that we have to be able to get data into Microsoft Fabric. And this is one of those options that is for multiple different database platforms. But you can do the same thing across the board to be able to get that real-time streaming OLTP information into your analytics workspace. So we've got mirroring, and mirroring is simple to be able to set up, but you've also got this CDC connector. So if you're looking to use CDC or you already have CDC enabled, keep in mind right now you can't use mirroring if CDC is enabled. But also if you're sitting there in Postgres or MySQL waiting for the capability to get this into Microsoft Fabric, you've got it. Plus, we've got the capability to be able to, using VNet data gateways, now get those private endpoint connections in place, and that's available for every Fabric SKU. I can't wait to play around with this. I've got some ideas of some things that we could build. We've got some fun videos that are coming up from Tales from the Field, but I'm adding this into the backlog of wonderful things to be able to do. I was very excited about this. Speaking of very excited, whenever I see this topic come up, it makes me just so happy and it makes my heart leap, because I know I am about to hear from a real American hero. And you know who I'm talking about. Of course, Mr. Daniel Taylor, Microsoft mirroring SQL Server database to Fabric. You had me at hello, Dan. What do we got?
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. If anybody can name the show in the chat, I will be extremely surprised.
Oh, you don't want us to? Because I could do points. I could name that show.
Oh, yeah. Name that tune. Name that tune.
Greatest American Hero. Oh my God, what a great show.
Shows as a kid. I watched it with my Grammy and my grandpa. It was such a great show. It was really dumb, but that was a great show.
Points for me because I put it in the chat before Brad said it. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, there we go. Josh gets the points. So also talk about a show that's ripe for a redo. I mean, where is this? That would be an easy hit on network television. Plus, it's superhero. Superheroes have been in the mainstream for the past 20 years. Come on, Howard.
I think so, and I think Marco would be the perfect star.
Well, Dan started singing, and I already saw those blonde curly locks flowing. Man,
I don't know that Marco has ever been told that he has flowing.
No. When Dan was singing, I could see them in my brain. The blonde curly locks. Man.
Okay, that's fair.
Greatest American hero. Come on.
Speaking of blonde flowing curly locks, I don't know if Cal or Anu has them, but Cal and Anu put together this awesome blog post here on mirroring SQL Server database to Fabric. Now, as Brad said, you had me at hello. This had me at transactional replication. I am one of those folks who love transactional replication, and people hate me for it. So Anu and Cal go through the basics of setting up transactional replication, your snapshot agent, your log reader, your distribution agent, which, by the way, I have a video showing how to do this here on the channel. I did it with a very large database, so you could get large changes up there as well. As a matter of fact, I did it behind the scenes to test mirroring out to Fabric. So they go through an example setup here of going through the transactional replication, the preparation, the creation of the tables.
Well, and Dan, I'm going to stop you real quick. So the reason to set up the transactional replication is what we're doing is we're getting data from SQL Server on-prem, and we're getting it into Azure SQL Database so we can mirror it directly into Microsoft Fabric. And what we're doing is we're using transactional replication in the snapshot to forklift that data into Azure. And then we're going to take those constant changes, those constant transactional changes within our database, and we're going to put them up into Azure SQL Database. So that way we just flip a simple switch and we get mirroring going and we get that over into Fabric, correct?
Great point. I'm glad you called out because I forgot to mention that at the beginning. This is just one of the many ways that we can, or one of the different ways we can get our data into Azure from on-premises to enable mirroring and take advantage of mirroring. Great call out, Brad. Thank you so much. They go through the creation of the publication, then they go through the creation of the subscription, which is why they bring out the basics at the beginning of this article. They don't go deep into transactional replication, but they go through the different parts here. And then the most exciting part here for me, not only was transactional replication, but configuring Fabric mirroring from Azure SQL database. It goes through step by step, once again, of how to set up and configure mirroring within Fabric to take full advantage of your Azure SQL DB data that is receiving near real-time data from your transactional replication into Azure SQL DB, which then replicates into our Fabric environment, and we can join it with all of our data warehouses in there, our lake houses. We could do integration runtime on it. We could do whatever we need once we have this mirroring set up and taking place into our Fabric environment. So great article by the two there. I was really excited to do read this, and actually it may be something fun to do for a video, even though we've done transactional replication and you've done mirroring, Brad. Maybe it's a fun end to end.
I was thinking the exact same thing, Dan. You're reading my mind. So maybe this is a collab video where we work on this, where you'll handle the transactional replication. I'll handle the scenario once we get the data up in the mirror. But yes, this is going to be fun. And I think we should do it step by step, so that way people understand how to be able to get that going. Now, talking about something that I think is absolutely fantastic, and I want to go step by step through it. I couldn't help but look at this. And not only do I love the title, do I love what this is about, I love the icon that the person has who wrote this. And who could bring us something like this but someone as creative and ingenious as Mr. Andrés Padilla, LLM Ops, the key to mastering large language models, by Anish Patel. And look at what Anish has. I got to tell you, I do love a little Einstein with a little equals MC squared in the background. Very easy to think that it could be Rick from Rick and Morty, but I'm pretty sure it's Einstein.
Oh, it even reminds me a little bit. Well, no, the Einstein reminds me of Doc's dog in Back to the Future. Was it Copernicus in the, two, and then Einstein? I forget.
Oh, great callback. Great
callback. A little bit of Back to the Future for you. Anyways, you guys, great article by Ashish Patel. I love this because it sort of lays down what customers in their LLM Ops evolution and maturity they have to go through. And I have one company that I can't name their name, but they've evolved step by step through each one of these, and they are now running one of the Cadillac samples that I would love to be able to promote, but I can't do it here. But these guys did exactly what we're talking about here in this article. They had to do data management, and data management, you have to source, you have to clean the data. People forget about that when it comes to Gen AI applications. You're gonna go through some data management process, and you have to store it, you have to version, you have multiple versions of that. Then if you want to create your own custom model, you're going to go through that run-of-the-mill model development. You pre-train the model, you maybe fine-tune it, you set benchmarks, you choose your architecture. But then now with LLMs, it's a lot about model choice. And in that model choice, you're going to go through processes like, is it conversational? Am I just doing summarization? Do I use ChatGPT 4.0, or can I lean on ChatGPT 3.5 and Instruct? So there's that model selection phase. And then being able to swap out models as quickly as possible so you can see which one is giving you actually better results. Then you're going to monitor, you're going to maintain, you're going to optimize, you're going to fine tune this whole process. And then finally, when you're done with that, then I tell customers, hey, guess what? Now start throwing in, don't throw in the kitchen sink from the beginning. Then you start adding in a little bit of data privacy, all the responsible AI. The point here in this article is what the phases you'll go through. At the beginning, you don't want to go through all of them. Just get the water going. Just watch the water, flow from point A to point B. Then you start to fine tune, be a little bit more elegant, add a little bit more complexity into that whole LLM
Absolutely.
ops lifecycle.
And the great thing is this is a very detailed article with wonderful visualizations on all of this. And I mean, great summarization, but what a fantastic resource to be able to really look at the way that people are going to deploy this. And then I love the visualizations, because whenever we have visualizations, it makes it so much easier for us to be able to apply. Here's the steps that we're going to take in this practical exercise.
Beautiful. I love it, Brad. Yeah, keep it coming, Ashish. Thanks so much for this one.
Absolutely. Fantastic stuff. Speaking of fantastic stuff, I always love it when we get an announcement. And of course, you know who we have doing that. We've got Mr. Marcos Cardoso announcing a new Azure OpenAI feature for developers on Azure. Marco, what do we got here?
It's a mysterious feature. It's not in the title, but it's right in the first paragraph. This is a feature that is so simple that it's almost silly that we didn't have it before, but I'm so glad it's here. Talking about structured outputs. A lot of times when we are developing with LLMs, we just want to do something very straightforward. We want to take some text and we want to structure it. And this has been the point of AI for quite a while. We want to take some text and identify fields. We want to output this in a format that can be inserted into a database. There's a ton of usage for this feature. And that's exactly what it does. You tell it, you're not just asking nicely, which is something that we have been doing with LLMs for quite some time, to output in a specific format. We're giving that format. We're specifying the schema and saying, whatever you output, use this format. Now, we're including this feature in the newest models, GPT-4o, GPT-4o Mini. I started experimenting with it. It's super interesting how we open up new use cases with this new feature. I'm super excited. And the second thing that's super exciting about this is that we're getting more accurate tool outputs. So if you've been experimenting with function calling, it can be a little frustrating when the model generates the formats just a little bit wrong, just wrong enough that it's not valid JSON and it breaks your code. Well, that's no longer the case with structured outputs. So it's basically structuring the schema that you want the model to output in. That applies to function calling. That applies to overall model outputs. And this is going to be so much easier to develop these crazy integrations that we've been working on. I'm experimenting with it. I'm very happy about it, and I'm looking forward to what we've come up with this new feature.
Outstanding. And speaking of outstanding, this next blog that we have, first off, comes from a place that is very near and dear to my heart. Second off, I love the topic, and we get asked this question all the time, and only a brilliant mind can come up with that. And a brilliant mind protected and covered by a hat. It's the man in the hat, Mr. Josh Luedeman, with choosing a file format, data engineering with Microsoft Fabric.
No, yeah. So this article, I wanted to bring this one up because, like you were saying, Brad, it's a regular topic, especially for folks who are new to, big data or large scale analytics platforms. Is the importance of what type of file to use. So in this article, John Miner actually goes through and walks through all of the different types of files, and frankly, even the types of data files that you can, or file types you can use for your data files, and even gets into the contents of like the Delta files and things like that. Gets into basic stuff of what's the right use case for using flat files, but managed versus unmanaged Hive tables and what that means. It's really just a good article because SQL DBAs really talk about the distribution and how many data files to use and when to start getting into that. And really, when you're in these large scale analytics platforms like Fabric using OneLake, it is very important to get that base structure right, that file format, the right choice for the use case you're looking to fulfill. That this article is just, there's never enough of these. It's a very fundamental article, but frankly, it can't be said enough because, it's all too common to walk into an environment. Folks are new to large scale analytics and complaining about bad performance and running, huge CSV files, right? And so this is just a great article to take you step by step through the whole process and really understand what you're doing.
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, no, and you bring up, Josh, it's a fundamentals. I love reading fundamental stuff. I love going back because I forget things. I constantly forget things, and I need these reminders. Knowing the basics is going to set you up for the advanced topics. And
yeah, and I even meant it fundamental, like not even fundamental to you using the platform, but fundamental to it running properly, right? Because that's one of those things, just like not doing proper indexing. If you screw that up, the whole thing's foobarred, right? And same thing with file formats. You need the right format for the right use case. Otherwise, the whole thing's just useless. It's not going to be performant at all.
I love it. And it's also wonderful just to be able to step through those. I love the detail to be able to break down what those different file types are, so you can understand the advantages to each of them. And also it's really fundamental to understand you can read all those different types of files into Microsoft Fabric, because sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes you're pulling data from an API. Sometimes you're getting it from a third-party vendor, and you can't choose how you're receiving that data. So knowing that you have the capability, or knowing, hey, I'm getting it in this format and I'm going to transform it to this format, and here's why we're taking that step. All of that is important as you build out that process, because somebody's going to ask why at some point in time.
Yep, and he had me with the title and the cherry on top. He mentioned ORC format. No one talks about org files enough, and I'm sorry, I'm one of those weirdos that likes them. So there you go.
So yeah, not a weirdo by any stretch. I'm going to pick up a couple of chat comments we have. Today is movie reference day. Dan says we're throwing in the garbage disposal as well, but not the kitchen sink. I love it. Way to bring that together, Dan. Speaking of something that I want to talk about that brings two incredible things together, Andreas, what if I told you that we could create RAG patterns in Microsoft Fabric over our lakehouse, over our data warehouse, and then we can actually add suggestions of how that RAG pattern can be more effective, and then we could call it as a copilot in a notebook cell? What would you say to that?
Did I just die and go to heaven?
I think you did.
So.
I'm talking about the man with the best handle on Twitter, Sandeep Pawar, Pawar BI. Use AI skills as cell magic in Fabric notebooks. So first up, we're going to have a little fun with AI skills coming up pretty soon on Tales from the Field, because we have not dove into this topic whatsoever. The AI skills give us the capability to set up a RAG pattern using OpenAI as a copilot that we can use against our data in our data lake. We can actually run T-SQL queries to be able to ask a question, and then it will produce the T-SQL to get us the results. But let's say those results aren't perfect. We can actually go in there and we can suppose a question. What's the product count? How late are we on deliveries by average? And we can tune the SQL. So when people ask questions, we can make sure the metrics are correct. Now, imagine enabling that AI skill on your data, being able to fine tune those questions, but then on top of it, you can call it in a notebook. Well, that's what Sandeep Pawar shows us. He does a run through to be able to show how we provision an AI skill, how we get an endpoint for this, how we can call the endpoint. And then he shares with us the pandas code. Well, and he's installing the semantic link and Pydamic specifically to be able to make these calls. He walks us through this, gives us the context, and then in the end, he creates a magic skill where he can call his AI skill and say, calculate the average tip by day of the week and round to the first decimal point. And so this is customized for his information. And as you can see right here, he animates this and he can show how it actually produces the answer to this code. And it's from the data he has within his own lakehouse. I thought this was such an ingenious and fantastic use case, because we've gotten used to using copilots now. We've gotten used to using copilots in notebooks. Now you can make your own RAG pattern copilot can answer your own questions in notebooks. AI skills are just incredible. They're so cool to be able to play around with. They're quick to be able to set up. I love it that they're accessible by notebooks. So great job, Sandeep. Eventually, we're going to have to make a video out of this, but we're going to start with the basics. We're going to start with AI skills, and then we're going to get somewhere else. But that was a lot of fun to be able to look at. Talking about a lot of fun to be able to look at, I loved seeing this article in here because, again, it goes back to my root and one of my first loves. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about the mountain man, Daniel Taylor, with Index Cleanup, Harder Than It Looks, by our buddy, Microsoft MVP, Aaron Bertrand.
Aaron Bertrand, only second to my first favorite Canadian, Ryan Reynolds. My second favorite Canadian here, Aaron Bertrand. Great article here by Aaron, putting together an Index Cleanup Harder Than It Looks. Goes through why is it beneficial to go through this exercise every once in a while. And I literally just had this conversation 2 weeks ago with a client looking at their database, and I gave them my whole spiel. They were like, well, do you have any articles that can reinforce this as well? And lo and behold, I found out in July, Aaron put this article out. He goes through the conversation of low reads are not wasteful, which is true. We may have an index that's not used on a regular basis. You may or may not want to get rid of that. No recent usage. Once again, you got to think about your environment. And Aaron goes through the different ways you can think about what indexes haven't been recently used. Goes through a good conversation about how some of the same key columns are not identical. Definitely recommend you read through that, and some other cleanup considerations. A couple of my favorite ones here are missing an include column or are not unique when they should be, right? You may have an index that you want to make unique. And then he closes it out with now what? The key thing here, folks, and Aaron drives this home as well as I like to drive this home, is you need to test this within your environment. Just because you think that you can get rid of this index, you still need to make sure you understand your patterns within your environment. And Aaron goes through this here, and make sure you're not dropping indexes that are needed or creating indexes that aren't necessarily needed. So great article here by Aaron.
Fantastic stuff. And speaking of fantastic, I always love it when we go from that to something that's a little more modern like this. Andreas, we've got on announcing Jumpstart Drops by Lior Karmat. What has Lior got going on, Andreas? Walk me through this here.
For all you Arc jump starters out there, Lior and company, they run the Arc enabled environment within Azure. So they've been doing incredible work with making sure if you have a Kubernetes cluster and you have to archify it and connect it, and you have, you need to control all those assets from one central repository. I think, Josh, you were involved in a lot of this work, in the back a couple of months. You've been done a ton of Arc stuff. Love this Jumpstart Drops because it's made for the community, by the community. And so if you go into Jumpstart Drops, you'll notice that there's templates for deploying a Kubernetes cluster with Micro 8s or Rancher, connecting a Kubernetes cluster with an Azure Monitor agent, or the Azure ML extension. There are samples and scripts for anything Arc in here. It's great. If there's a sample in there that I really love for incorporating Azure Video Indexer into your Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster, and the list goes on and on. But it's pretty much, if you have a good script, if you have a dashboard, if you have an artifact, it can be written in Ansible, it can be in Terraform, it can be in Bicep, it can be in ARM. They're asking you, go ahead, throw it in there. Let's build out this whole repository so it enables and benefits the Arc community. And I love this because you guys probably have known, I've been doing a lot of work with Azure IoT operations, and I'm waiting for that bad boy to go hopefully GA in the next couple of months. And already, even though that's in preview, there's some good jump starts for adding the Azure extension with Azure IoT operations, or using Azure IoT operations in a RAG pattern on a Kubernetes cluster. Awesome stuff in here.
Fantastic. I always love that. It's a great job that they do to be able to put these drops together. It's coming up though. We've got something, and I got to tell you, it wasn't on mute when I originally clicked on this link. And boy, did the deep, sultry bass voice of this video just come booming in through my headphones. And you know what I'm talking about because he's smiling. I'm talking about Mr. Marco Aurelio Cardoso. And Marco, you have given me GitHub Models, the future of AI development. Walk me through what we've got in this video.
Yeah, very cool stuff. I didn't know this channel before. This is Byte Monk, and I had the exact same experience as you, Brad. I also had my volume all the way cranked to the top. So do be careful when clicking the link. But two things I love about this video. First of all, the animations are on point. I love a technical video that does that well, and Byte Monk really did that well. In this video, he starts introducing how AI is connected to developers. So he talks about the different platforms that we have available, covers OpenAI, he talks about Hugging Face and a couple of others. All of that to introduce the idea of GitHub models. So when I first heard about GitHub models, I didn't really understand the hype. It looks very similar to what we already have in Hugging Face. So what is it all about? Well, GitHub Models makes all the models, not just the ones that are open source, available for developers to play around with. So towards the end of the video, you'll see a couple of examples of how you can connect to models in OpenAI, models from Llama, models all over the place using a unified interface, which is so important for developers. One thing that I'll confess, when I start messing around with data science related processes, I very often ask myself, am I doing this wrong or is this model worse? So with GitHub models, you get a unified interface where you can just switch in the different models. The GitHub library takes care of the interfaces so that they look the same. You can replace in different models and see how your solutions work. And all of that is free. You just have to have your GitHub account. You'll configure it with your GitHub token. Of course, rate limits are small. It's not at scale. It's not something designed for production. It has instructions on how to get to production. But it puts all of these models into the hands of the developers. Super easy to configure, and you can experiment lightning fast with anything you're looking for. This is amazing. I mean, I'm very glad that I have some stuff within Microsoft that I can test with, but now everybody gets to enjoy that, and I find that amazing.
So I'm pulling this to the side for no other reason than I really, having to do so much editing and video design as we do. I'm loving the graphics. I'm loving the way that they've got this. It's interesting because I can understand from the tools that we use how you can get some of these graphics. Essentially, they're taking a snippet of the screen of the code interface. They're making it a little more transparent, but I love that tilting thing. I haven't quite figured that out yet. And I love it not only when I can engage with the video on a technical level, but I'm also looking at it from an artistic level going, how did they do that? That's fascinating.
And that makes such a difference, right? Sometimes the content is there, but if the presentation isn't good, it doesn't really engage. I loved every single piece of that video. It's really well edited.
Yes. And speaking of, so we are down to the last link, last, but certainly not in our hearts or in our minds. I've got the man in the hat, Mr. Josh Luedeman, with the July 2024 recap, Azure Postgres SQL Flexible Server. I probably should try and say that again, by Varun Dhawan. Varun, of course, who was on our live stream, and we are planning on having Varun back, I believe, in the month of September. We're very, very excited to be able to have the Postgres team back. Josh, talk to me about some of these highlights.
Yeah, so the article, Varun does a great job, just goes through some of the enhancements that dropped this past month, including system managed, assigned managed identity is now generally available. Some really good point-in-time recovery improvements, including quicker recovery so that your system can bounce back faster, reducing the amount of downtime. Some database sizing monitoring metric is now available. Index tuning enhancements. One of the neat things that me, I look for signs. I try and read tea leaves. The CLI enhancements detailed in number 5 that are now generally available are all based off of new features based off of issues that the community has actually registered against the GitHub project around Azure CLI PostgreSQL issues for the CLI. So those all come from there. Great stuff. And then this one, the next one, the Azure Data Factory improvements. Just basically looking at error messages and trying to make that a little bit better, but then also added the functionality to connect to or from an Azure Data Factory pipeline using private link, which is huge in my book because that was one thing I was trying to do, having some issues with. So that's good to see. And then just some highlights of what they did recently at the PG Conf 2024, links to session materials in the conference, and even spotlight on a customer that they worked with in Europe.
Excellent. And I love it. We've got some links right here so people can check out the great work that the team is doing.
Agreed.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. All right, gentlemen. Well, that brings us to the end of it. We've got a couple things that I want people to keep in mind. First off, go check out the information that we have put up on the video on Monday. I'm going to go ahead and hit this for our exit, and we're going to hopefully make sure that it doesn't overwhelm. Josh, I'm going to trust you to grab the volume in the background for me. So remember, Dan, you're at SQL Saturday Columbus, and then we have got the Microsoft Global Fabric Conference. Myself and Bradley Schacht will be there in September. The week after that, we have Future Data Driven. Myself and then Daniel Taylor have a presentation. Neeraj Jhaveri and Andrés Padilla have a presentation. Dan will also that week be in Stockholm for the Microsoft Fabric Conference out at the Community Zone. So go check him out. In October, Dan is up at SQL Saturday Boston. And then we are at SQL Saturday Orlando, where we will have multiple sessions. Bradley Schacht's got a session. Dan and Bradley Schacht have a session. I've got a session. And then we've got the first Tales from the Field roundtable, where we're going to be doing that live in front of an audience. They can ask us anything. Ask us about YouTube. Ask us about video editing. Ask us about Azure. Ask us about stuff that we can't answer, but we won't be able to answer that. But I'll be there. Andrés Padilla will be there. Dan will be there. Bradley Schacht will be there. Josh is going to be on a tropical vacation celebrating his wedding anniversary. Congratulations to Josh and the missus on that one. And then we will be going to Live 360, and we will be there all week. And it is absolutely massive, the amount of things we're doing. Make sure and check that video out and find where you can interact with us. Anything else that I'm forgetting? Mentally Stable-ish is out, the podcast. Go to mentallystablish.com to be able to stream it directly on the website. Also, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on iHeartRadio. We're all over the place with this thing.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
Brad, there is one thing we did forget. Josh, if you could do it real quick, where are we going to be at Live 360?
The beautiful and exotic grounds of the Lowe's Royal Pacific Resort and Conference Center on the luscious, fun-loving grounds of Universal Studios Orlando, Florida during the perfect time of year, which is late fall, early winter, which is where it's cold where you are and it's not where we are.
Absolutely. That's the only place you want to be the week before Christmas, the week before Thanksgiving. We're already decorated for Christmas. The gingerbread tree will be up. The train goes around the Christmas trees. The parks will be decorated. Santa's going to be there. I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to go see Santa? All right. That's enough from us for Tales for the Field. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure and check us out in all the different places we're going to be. Be good to one another and take care, everybody. Bye.
Grow hard, what you want to be.